Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first question and answer webinar for the Fall Copywriting Mentorship Program. If you're watching this as a recording, the way that we typically do these is I'll run down the list, as you can probably see on the screen already, of questions in the thread, and then I will also take questions via the chat box inside the webinar. So if you're watching the replay, you're not going to see the questions in the chat box, but I will read them back and you'll know what the context is. So don't be afraid to post on this question thread if you are going to miss the webinar, not be here for some reason, have to duck out early, whatever, because I will do my absolute best to answer every single question that we bring up. All right, so far we've got Daryl Bartlett and Richard on the webinar. How's it going, guys? Yeah, absolutely, Richard. We can talk about that. That's the best way to learn, in my opinion. So Richard asks, can you ask about applying the 4 pillars into your specific business? Absolutely, yes. I think that applying the 4 pillars is the only way people really learn the 4 pillars, because strategically speaking, they make sense, and you've probably read about the concepts before somewhere else. But if you haven't applied them, then it's really, really difficult to get the true meaning behind it. So yeah, Richard, we can definitely look at that as we're on here. I'm going to answer the questions first on the thread, and then we can talk about your business. So let's see who we got. Attendees, we've got Debbie. Welcome, Debbie. Good morning. I'm actually not sure if it's morning for you. It's morning for me. And Giles, welcome to everyone. Like I said before you guys got here, if you have a question that is not on the thread already, then feel free to post it in the question box of this webinar, and I will get to that. I'll read it out loud for everyone who's listening to the recording, and we'll go from there. This is going to run about an hour. Sometimes they go a little bit over, sometimes they go less if nobody's got any questions. So I'm not in here to waste anybody's time or make sure that we sit for exactly an hour, but definitely not going to be much longer than an hour either. So not sure what your questions are yet, says Debbie. Yeah, I get that. The first module is the most important modules, and it's also the one that has the most questions, because strategically it makes sense, but it's kind of hard to get all the details right away. Brian, welcome, my friend. Glad you can join us. Brian is our newest member. He joined us yesterday. Singapore. No, New Zealand. You said New Zealand in your intro. Welcome. And Yelena. Welcome, Yelena. I know it's 9 a.m. for you because you are down in Denver, I think. But welcome to everyone. Thanks for being on here. Real quick, just for everyone else who jumped on, we're going to answer the questions on the Q&A thread first. And then if you have any additional questions, just post them in the chat box. Those listening to the recording are going to hear me say the questions out loud from the chat box so that they have context on the questions. So let's jump in. We've got a couple questions from Charlotte, Jenny, and Giles. So let's do this, and since I know that my screen is big and it's kind of hard to see, we're going to zoom in on these real quick and go from there. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody see the screen just fine? Give me a thumbs up in the thread if you can. Sorry, in the chat. All right, we got yeses coming through. Cool. Sounds good, not too crazy. Using Yeti mic, but I'm never sure about the gain on what you guys are hearing because I don't have it. Good morning, everyone. Good evening, wherever you're at. I know that we've got a huge international base here, but I'm excited. This is fun. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your mentorship, and hopefully this will be one of the most transformative courses that you guys ever go through. That's my intent. So without further ado, let's stop wasting time and answer some questions. So Charlotte asks 6 different questions. They all have to do with Module 1, Big 4 awareness type stuff. So question number 1, can the same person have different primal desires in different markets? The answer is yes, absolutely. So the primal desire is the motivating factor when it comes to whatever the product or service is that you're trying to sell. So when someone wants to buy something or is in the market to buy something, there will be a core driving desire behind that purchase. People purchase different things every single day. Now, I will say that oftentimes people will have one particular purchase that they're thinking about over everything else, or a couple things that are on their mind. You know, it's the thing that actually keeps them awake at night. Now, all good copywriters will tell you, try to figure out what your target market is keeping, you know, what's keeping. If you have 100 people who fit your demographics, there might be only 1 or 2 who are actively worried about that problem at any given time, which is why we do the awareness and sophistication stuff. So your primal desire is going to be speaking to the people who need that at that time. And if it's something like buying a house versus buying a candy bar, it's going to have a very different primal desire, but you can see how the primal desires are both there. If buying a candy bar is an impulsive decision that is appealing to the need for sugar, the need for something to reward yourself, something very simple like that, something very impulsive. The same can be applied to information that's an impulsive buy, or trials for a SaaS product because that's a $1 trial. So that type of impulsiveness versus buying a house is obviously a long, drawn-out, emotionally taxing process, and that primal desire has more to do with what the house says about them as a person, what the what their spouse wants, what they want, what type of life they want to live, where their kids are going to school. So many different things that incorporate the primal desire in different marketplaces and for different products. So absolutely they can, and they can have it at the same time. So how do you find out the primal driver of a market? This is the $64 million question. How do you find out what the primal driver of a market is? So the reason that in the training we break it down by the 7 deadly sins is because I wanted to give a framework for how you view these primal desires. Think about the 7 deadly sins, pride, lust, wrath, all of those, as buckets. They are words that describe the specific feeling that you're going to go out and find in the marketplace, and the specific language that you're going to have around that piece of copy. So when you look for the primal driver of a market, you're looking for something within the bucket or evidence of things being within a bucket based on what I taught you in the module. Now, how do you go out and find a primal driver of a market in tactical terms? Well, here, let's do this. I know Charlotte isn't on right now, but we have 6 people listening. So one of you 6, just throw out a market or a product or something like that, and I'll go in live and try and find the primal desire really quick. Keeping in mind, though, that it's not always really easy, and I may not succeed right away. All right, Giles was first, and he said mindfulness. All right, so, and Debbie followed up very quickly with small local business getting leads. Okay, so mindfulness. Let's start with mindfulness, all right? From the top of my head, and I'm going to rearrange where I'm setting everything right now, so give me 1 second. From the top of my head, mindfulness to me brings up the brand Mindvalley. Now, as you obviously spend more time in your market, as you know about your products and your competitors, you're going to know who does what at what point. So let's go to Mindvalley real quick and see what's going on. Now, this website is incredibly frustrating. What are some products that Mindvalley does? What about what's quantum jumping? I know that that's one of the ones that they have or used to have or something like it. So let's go and look at a product. Now, here's what I'm doing live so that you guys kind of understand. Giles told me that he wanted to look up the primal desire for a product around mindfulness. The first thing I did was go look for competitors that I know have that specific type of product. So when you're working with a client or when you're working with your own business, the first place you want to look is your competitors, especially the big ones that you know are successful, especially big products that you know are successful in that niche. Now, I never say to jump immediately into Russell Brunson's like funnel hacking right away, because I think that misses a core piece of what the entire market looks at. But when we look for this, we say, okay, jump into a universe of infinite possibilities. I know quantum jumping is sold more esoterically, kind of like The Secret, with all of these woo-woo terms, but at the end of the day, quantum jumping is simply transcendental meditation. which could be considered mindfulness. So when we're looking at this, it's never too late to become who you are meant to be. This headline is chosen for a reason. Same with this one, jump into a universe of infinite possibilities. So right here, as a copywriter, I'm looking at two very specific and almost contradictory feelings. The first one is jumping into a universe of infinite possibilities. These two words are very important, but it's never too late to become who you are meant to be. There's a juxtaposition here of the idea that there are infinite number of possibilities for that person, but there is a specific type of person that they are meant to be. So you're dealing with someone here who has a sense of being lost, a sense of searching, a sense of not knowing where they want to go and not really being rooted and strong in those beliefs. So their primal desire would be to be unstuck, unlost. It would be to find something, to find what their meaning is. Now, that's the first layer of a primal desire when we're digging into this thing. If you're familiar with NLP, I'll be the first to say I'm not an NLP expert, but I have studied it to a brief degree for sales conversations. There's a concept in NLP called criteria elicitation. And when you're speaking to an individual, it's basically digging down into that person's criteria for doing what they're doing or why they believe certain things. Now, the first layer here, when we look at the contradictory beliefs of wanting an infinite possibility, but knowing who they are, we're dealing with a person who feels lost and confused at the top level. Now we need to find out why they feel lost and confused, or why they feel that they feel lost and confused. There's two very specific, two different things there. So they're hearkening back to some of their previous desires. So now you're looking at a person who's not only lost and confused, but a person who has guilt. A person who is a person that feels like they should have done more, and that's why they're feeling lost or confused, like they haven't done enough in their lives. So now we're at the second layer of primal desire. We first identified through the use of headlines on this particular product that you are looking at a person who's confused and lost and is trying to find their way, or trying to find clarity. The reason that they are confused and lost and trying to find their way is because they have an inherent feeling of guilt around where they currently are. They feel like they're not experiencing their full potential. Potentially, they could be in some sort of traumatic situation or recovering from a traumatic situation. And because of that guilt, they are feeling confused and lost about what they want to do, and they're seeking answers on how to get unlost. I know that's not a word, but unlost. And then we're going deeper into the criteria. We're going deeper into the primal desire, because that guilt comes from somewhere. They don't just feel guilt. Something triggers the guilt. Now, that guilt might be something that comes from seeing a person, a relative, a family member, a friend, an acquaintance, a business person whom they admire or grew up with, or even someone who's their peer. That guilt might be coming from seeing that person succeed at a level that this person has not yet. So it could be an envy thing. Envy would be the deep, deep primal desire that is driving that guilt. Now, it could also be a pride thing. It could also be a belief in oneself and a disappointment in oneself that they haven't achieved what they feel they are supposed to achieve. Now, pride for things like mindfulness and meditation is not often my go-to. It's not something that I always start with this kind of thing, because usually someone who is prideful has a type of achievement mentality. And so they're prideful and they're happy with their results, but they're more concerned about achieving, getting more, doing better than others, things like that. And so they're not necessarily as interested in this feeling lost. They don't feel lost for the most part. They feel driven, they feel angry, they feel jealous, but they mostly feel like they need to do better for themselves. Now, Giles, does that make sense to you when I break down primal desire in that way for a specific business or a specific product, since we talked about mindfulness. Okay, so Charlotte, thank you for that question. How do you find the primal desire of a marketplace? This was easier simply because Mindvalley has done a ton of research on this copy, and so we can verify relatively easily that the headlines are tested. They've been used over time. But if you're in a market that's not as easy to dig down and find that kind of thing, then you're going to have to go through a couple different products, a couple different sales pieces, maybe even look at reviews on Amazon, reviews on eBay, Etsy, places like that, to go and find out what the actual buyers of the product are feeling and doing. So that is one way to do it. Now, one of my favorite ways to find a primal desire is to do a deep dive survey. I learned this from one of my mentors, Ryan Levesque. And the deep dive survey is a specific way of surveying your audience or sending cold traffic to a quiz or a survey, essentially, and figuring out what their number one challenge is. Now, the key with that is not that you look specifically at what they say their number one challenge is. You look for the reading between the lines. You look for the story that they're telling themselves and the reason behind their number one challenge and what they believe is causing their number one challenge, because everyone has an idea of what's causing their challenge. And that's where you really find your good stuff, and that's where you can find really powerful primal desire type stuff. So another way to do that is a deep dive survey. I believe we talk about that in one of the modules, but if we don't, then I will absolutely do a quick training on that. But I'm almost positive we talk about that in one of the modules. All right, so thank you, Charlotte, for that question, and thank you, Giles, for coming up with a good one. So Debbie also brought up a small business or small local business getting leads. Yeah, so, and then Mindvalley's recommended. We won't go over local small business right now getting leads, because small business getting leads is hyper specific to the type of local business. And so if I am a professional at getting leads for a financial advisor, a restaurant is not going to even listen to me, simply because they're both local and brick and mortar. They don't care. They all feel special. They all feel unique, and that's one of the traits of small business. So when you're dealing with small businesses, you have to dig deeper into one more layer or two more layers of specificity. Does that make sense, Debbie? Cool. All right. So number 3. Does primal desire only work in consumer markets, or do they also work when selling to business? Yes. So they work selling to business, because even though it's B2B, you're still dealing with people. And for the most part, you're dealing with one person or a small group of people, because the business has a decision maker. They have a person who's in charge of sending money, or a person who's in charge of making purchase decisions. And that person is going to have a primal desire. That person is going to have a motivation. And so when you discuss your project or whatever it is you're trying to sell to that business, you have to frame it in terms that this person you're communicating with will understand, appreciate, and take action on. That may not be the person who's actually going to benefit from the thing you sell. So let's say you sell HR training. So you are a training company that sells HR or like basically how to run your HR systems better, right? So that employees don't get pissed off enough, a lot, right? And you're fined for an audit, all this kind of crazy stuff, right? That's your system. When you market that, you're not going to market to the HR director, because the HR director does not have purchase capability. In most businesses, they don't anyway. They can suggest things, but they certainly can't sign a check for you without anybody else looking at it. So you have to go find the CEO, or you have to go find the CMO, or the person who's in charge, the CFO, who manages purchasing decisions. My suggestion would be usually to go as high as humanly possible and let that person refer you down, but that's a B2B tactic we can talk about specifically if you need it. Now, that CEO that you go talk with is going to have a primal desire. And their primal desire is going to be to grow their company, or to be the best company, or compete with the people around them, or to eventually sell to another business or something like that. The CEO is going to have a motivation, and that motivation is going to be prefaced with a primal desire, something deep within them, whether it's pride, greed, envy, wrath, lust, whatever it happens to be. All of those buckets of primal desire are going to exist in the CEO. Now, one of the struggles is translating their primal desire into your product solution. And that's the trick with B2B. So it can be harder because it's not as direct as consumer markets, but at the same time, it's much more lucrative because you can get a $100,000 sale and up very easily from one business. So it's a trade-off. It's a little bit harder, but not quite. It still uses the exact same methodology. And if you guys have questions sitting here live on anything that I'm answering on these threads for people who are not here live, please feel free to chime in, because it helps me to get feedback in the chat to make sure you guys understand it and are getting the right kind of stuff, getting the answers you need. All right, how do you nail the market sophistication? Good question. So the market sophistication is based completely on the competitive environment, so who your competitors are. I try to find at least 10 of the top competitors for any client that I work with. So if I'm working with Mindvalley, then one of their top competitors is Hay House. Hay House is another personal development publishing company. Now, there's plenty of other personal development publishing companies as well, like on ClickBank and other places that offer, other publishing companies. So I can go to them and not only look at those overall companies, but I can look at the specific offers they're making around my product. So let's say, Mindvalley has multiple clients selling plenty of different stuff, from mindfulness, quantum jumping, to like tantric meditation, all these different things that are different from one another in pretty drastic ways, but have a similar overhead. Same thing with Hay House. They publish a ton of different stuff, a ton of different authors. So what I would go and find are the top 10 specific competitors to my product, or to the product that I'm writing for a client, and then find out how they're marketing. What are the headlines they're using? What's the email copy, the email subject lines that they're using? What products are they offering? If I'm working with a big client, one of the pieces of research I do is actually buy through the funnel. So I not only understand what the sales message is for the core offer on the front end, but I also see what upsells are being offered and how and at what price points, because that lets you know, okay, this is the core offer and these are the offers that they're putting in the back end to help sell more to the primal desire or to the primal fear that they are appealing to. And all of those things can be incorporated into your sales message once you understand it. Now, understanding the market sophistication is also about understanding where the market is going. So you can get a snapshot of what exists. Let's say the market is at a level 2 sophistication, which means that they've moved beyond the really simple headlines like lose fat now into lose fat in 7 days or lose 45 pounds quick, something specific, making the headline bigger and better, but not incorporating a new mechanism yet, because that's level 3. So at level 2, bigger and better headlines are going to get even more big and even better as you go until they're super, super tired. And what you'll notice, especially doing the research on your market awareness and the target market, is that you'll start to see people complaining about the offers that are being made in that marketplace. A really good example that I'm familiar with right now is the coaching and consulting and expertise market. You can see the market's feeling right now, the sophistication level of the market, because a lot of people are posting about hating the fact that they see the exact same headlines over and over and over again on these webinars or the Facebook ads and things like that. That's a really good sign that the market is at a stage 2, but it's getting really tired, and it's going to start to flip to a stage 3, where people have to get more specific on the mechanism they're using in order to interest people and get them talking. Now, one of the mechanism switches that you can see actively in that marketplace is a webinar. So it used to be how to get 5 to 10 high-ticket clients per month. That was the headline that everybody ran or copied and turned into their own thing. Now you're starting to see a shift to webinars being the mechanism. And then what happens there is with level 3, everybody starts putting, like webinars has become the mechanism. And then transitioning to level 4 would be the webinars every day, or the super webinar formula, or the better webinar formula, or something, yada, yada, yada. People improve upon the new mechanism that was created in level 3. And then the only way to fix that, as people are kind of growing the headlines and hyping the crap out of everything, is to go back and invent a new mechanism and then start over. And they just keep doing that cycle until eventually you run out of stuff to invent and you hit level 5, which you guys will learn about in another module. So that's how you nail market sophistication. Go find your top 10 competitors for the specific type of product that you're offering and start to look at what kind of headlines are they offering. Are they offering direct headlines like do this now? Are they offering direct but better headlines like do this in this exact amount of time, or do this faster, or do this better? And if they're doing that, that's level 2. If you see do this using blank, or blank shows you, or this particular mechanism changes things, then you're at level 3. And level 4 is when you see those mechanisms being bigger and batterized, even though that's not a word, making bigger and badder mechanisms and showing off on those headlines. That's a level 4, and you'll see the cycle twist around itself for a while until the entire market is super exhausted with all the offers, and then it either splinters or turns into level 5, which you guys will learn about in this course. All right, thanks, Debbie. So that's how you nail market sophistication. Next question is, how do you handle different levels of market sophistication at the same time? One country or region is at one level compared to another region. That's easy. Segment your audience. If you're a big enough company or you have a big enough client that they can afford to target multiple levels of sophistication in multiple areas all at once, then you should absolutely do it. So the best way I can explain it is that every single one of these levels of awareness and these levels of sophistication is separated from one another by a wall. And so it doesn't make sense, and this is answering your number 6 question as well. It doesn't make sense to a person who's at level 1 of awareness to respond to a level 2 advertisement, and vice versa, all the way through all 5 levels and all 5 stages of sophistication. So if you are marketing to multiple levels of these things because you have multiple channels, the only way to do it is to segment your marketing and make sure that only the right audience sees the right message. Otherwise, it's going to massively dilute your results to the point where it can be a failed campaign. And that's my recommendation. Never try to put together a broad piece of marketing with one caveat, and that is if you're really, really successful at appealing to a level 5 market, or I'm sorry, a stage 5 marketplace. This is the branding stage that you guys will learn about later. That's the only caveat, and you will learn about why. So let's see. So Debbie asks, is there a type of formula to use based on the market sophistication? So yes, in 2 different ways. So the modules, module 1 shows you kind of what messages work with each sophistication level and each awareness level. So that's something that's in module 1, but there's also a bonus in the course called the grid. And the grid is rough right now. I created it because I saw the gap in the previous training, and I answered a lot of questions about this on Q&A, so I'm creating that IP around it. But essentially, it's a grid that takes the levels of awareness on one hand and the levels of sophistication on another, and allows you to pick the point where they intersect, figure out if your market is at that point, and then shows you the right type of messaging to use when it is at that point. Now, it's still high-level strategy because it's not any swipe files, but that's what's going to answer that question a little bit better. So yeah, I just answered that question. No problem, Debbie. But with that said, the grid is not finished, and the grid was not necessary to achieve the results that we got with the previous guys. Basically, what you have to do is take them separately. So find out what the market sophistication is and put a number on it. Like, once you put a number on it, then if we're going through a hot seat or if we're talking on the Q&A, I'm going to ask you to justify that number. And then that's going to make you sit through and think through the thought process of why you gave it that number. Doing that over and over is going to show you where your thought process is and allow you to become more accurate when you distinguish what market sophistication is. Because, like I said, the big four, you have to nail these things down. And if you miss it, then you're just talking to the wrong people. Once you've gotten your number for sophistication, you want to get your number for awareness. Now, awareness is more of a choice on your part as a copywriter than it is a piece of research. Now, market sophistication is very cut and dry. It's the market is doing this. I can show it based on these headlines and these competitors and all that kind of stuff. Market awareness is about the individual prospect or the type of prospect that you're targeting. And that level of awareness starts at being the most aware, whether they're on your email list or your social media, or they're very aware of who you are as a business, they've perhaps done business with you before, all the way down to literally unaware that they have anything resembling a problem, yet they still fit the demographic. An example would be a client that I'm working with right now has a business that helps men over 40 who are fathers lose weight. His level 1 awareness are the people who are on his email list, following him on social media, and reading his blog regularly. You know, the people who come back all the time. That's his level 1 awareness. They're the most aware. The level 5, all the way back up to the completely unaware, is the dad who's over 40, who has 40 pounds to lose, but he doesn't think he's fat, he doesn't think he's obese, he doesn't think he's unhealthy, he doesn't care about being healthy, he eats whatever he wants, he has absolutely no desire whatsoever to be healthy. However, he's still over 40, a dad, and has 40 pounds to lose. He's 40 pounds overweight. That's the difference. The guy might look exactly the same when you're staring at him. When you stare at someone, that's the demographic information, right? Their sex, or how they identify whatever their gender is, where they live, what their income is, what color their skin is, how they talk, all that stuff is demographic information, like we talked about in Module 1. The psychographic information, which is how they think and what they believe, is your market awareness. That's how you distinguish where your people are at and how you message things. So that's how you distinguish between the two. Right now, before we get the grid out, which is going to be a multi-week process. It's not going to be like in a few days. Until we have that grid out and you can kind of look at my thought process around it, we're going to keep answering questions and keep doing case studies and going out into the community and figuring this stuff out. But identify the sophistication and then choose a level of awareness that you want to speak to, and that is your intersection right there. So let's move down to Jenny's. And we're 30 minutes in. That's not bad. Okay, so Jenny asks, how do you structure and save or record research in the most efficient way so it's easy to come back to for quick reference when we need to? Would be great if you can show us what you use and how you store research info. Okay, so I'm kind of going to dodge this question a little bit, Jenny, because there is a process module where I show you exactly how I do things, and that's later on in the course. And so I do want to show you that. Now, with this research component, every single person is very different. I'm a natural researcher. I don't know if you've taken a Colby test or if anybody on the call right now has taken a Colby test, but I'm a pure fact finder, 9434. And so the way I do research is very different from the way most people do research. And that's because I have a weird innate ability to retain information in my head and kind of catalog it like almost autistically. So it's not something that I would recommend for other people to model. It's just something that I can show you how I do stuff, how quickly I do stuff, and then kind of what my process is so you can create your own. Part of what I want to do in this mentorship program is empower all of you guys to create your own processes, to create your own systems and templates and everything like that, because once you create those yourself, they are so much more powerful than if you just copy mine or take one off the internet or something like that. There's just more buy-in, you know it better, you know the nuances, and so I am going to dodge this question for now, and we can talk about it later when we talk about my processes and how to basically build your own stuff. So when do you know when you've done enough research to actually start writing the project? There is a complicated answer and a simple answer, and I'll give you the simple answer. The simple answer is when you know more than your prospect does. Plain and simple. So once you've figured out the market sophistication and once you've figured out the level of awareness of your prospect, then you do the research to the point where you know more than your prospect. Now, I didn't say a million times more. You only want to know a little bit more than your prospect, because what ends up happening if you over-research is you go over the head of the person you're trying to talk to. And that's the worst thing you can do. You don't want to confuse them. You don't want to baffle them. You only want to be intriguing enough that you know something they don't and it's incredibly relevant. So once you've figured out what their awareness is, say they're problem aware, right? Problem aware is a guy who's over 40 and needs to lose 40 pounds, and all of a sudden he just got back from his doctor and he's like, and his doctor has told him that if he doesn't lose 40 pounds, he's going to have a heart attack in 5 years. That is a problem-aware individual, right? So now think about what the problem-aware individual knows at this point. He's just got back from the doctor. The doctor has given him some scary stuff about heart failure. He's probably on Google or WebMD looking at heart failure, looking at some issues, and now he's also searching for ways to lose belly fat, ways to lose, ways to lose weight in general, all that kind of stuff. So your guy is right there. And if you come to him and say, hey, did you just get the heart attack scare? He's going to pay attention immediately. That's an instant trigger for his attention, because you went to him and you said, hey, just got back from the doctor, didn't you? Did you get the heart attack scare? The reason I know that is because you're a guy over 40 who needs to lose weight. Every single guy over 40 gets this talk. And so now we need to talk about losing weight. That's the difference. That's how you reach them, and that's where you start the conversation, versus coming in and saying, hi, I'm Dr. Lucas Rashevsky, and did you know that men over 40 have a 68% chance more of having a heart attack when they are 40 pounds or more overweight? And the reason for this is because of the brown fat that goes inside your, it's not something that will appeal to them if you're going over their head. You can show them you know more than them, but don't go too far over their head. All right, third question. I'm freaking out a little bit about our first assignment. Some guidelines on how best to tackle these sales letter assignments. Deer in the headlights. Okay, yes, so definitely watch the videos. The reason I gave you 2 weeks instead of 1 week is because the previous guys assignment every single week for 12 weeks. And what I noticed was, while this helped them with deadlines and beating procrastination and researching quickly and getting things out, it also meant that they rushed the writing and they rushed the process. So today's Wednesday. You have until next Friday to turn this assignment in. I would recommend you spend this first week doing research, looking at the product, looking at the types of people that you would want to speak to, and going over the videos again, because that's going to show you kind of what the market awareness and sophistication things mean when I told you that in the assignment. Once you've got that feel for the marketplace, you're going to feel a little more secure about your knowledge of the marketplace. One of the things that most people feel insecure about when writing copy is the fact that they don't know the market yet, or they don't know the product, or there's something confusing to them about the whole process. So take this first week to do the research on the product and watch the Big 4 videos a couple times. And then once you've done all of that, then I would recommend you go find any template on the internet for a sales letter and follow it. The one I would recommend here, if you're watching this immediately, is Perry Belcher's 21-step sales letter. This 21-step sales letter is a pretty good template. You can also use David Frey's 12-step sales letter, which is essentially the same thing. Actually, you know what? I would recommend that one. Let's do that one instead. David Frey, 12-step. All right, that's this one here. You can tell I go here a lot because it's more purple. But just go to David Frey 12-step sales letter template, and you'll see this document here. It's 2 pages. It's got 12 steps. It gives you specific templates. Now, the reason I recommend this one to you is because you're appealing to a level 1, level 2 awareness market. And that type of market is easier to write for, and you can be simple and direct with them. And you're also writing copy for what I believe is the market leader in prop money. So you don't have to really justify any sort of weirdness. So, like some of the other projects we're going to work on down the line, it's not going to be as cut and dry and easy for you. You're going to have a product that is actually inferior to a lot of the stuff in the marketplace. So how do you write for those? This one's relatively easy once you've gotten comfortable with the topic. So I would recommend the first week getting comfortable with the topic, watching the Big 4 videos again, maybe asking some questions in the group around specifics, and then using this template, the 12-step David Frey template, in order to guide your writing. That's what I would recommend, Jenny. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys, too, that are on the call, because this is a template that I've actually never used this template myself. I've used Perry Belcher's, which is almost the same thing for 1 or 2 things, but it's very good for entry-level type copywriting offers and how to get something out the door. So, alrighty, so let's see. Yelena says, is there a way to know which level of awareness is the most lucrative level to market to for a specific niche? Good question. So, is there a way to know which level of awareness is the most lucrative level to market to for a specific niche? Let me give you my I actually answered this on one of the last Q&A calls for the previous mentees. Each level of awareness has its own opportunity and pros and cons. Level 1 is the easiest level of awareness to market to. For example, every one of you in the course listening to this is a level 1 awareness buyer. You were either in my social circles, you've been aware of me for a while, you've seen me around, you potentially saw the offer that I made on the Cult of Copy job board, something like that. You guys were all level 1. And so level 1 has a lot of trust built in. It has a lot of branding built into it because someone knows you and they trust you. Level 2 is the first point where I would say you're starting to deal with a cold traffic audience. And that is the people who don't know you yet, but they're still hyper aware to the point where they know about multiple solutions and they're really close to making a purchase decision. So they're lucrative to market to because they have buyer intent and there's a cold traffic market for them, which means that you can scale to the extent that the size of the market, whatever that market size is. It's bigger and smaller based on where you're at. So there's an opportunity there. Level 3 is problem aware. There's opportunity there because those people have not yet defined a problem or had enough information to define a problem, which means if you're a better explainer or a better educator or basically a better marketer, you can capture a much, much larger market than the level 2 guys. Think about it like this. Every level is exponentially larger than the previous level. Level 1 is very, very small, but very, very responsive, and it has a lot of trust built into it. Level 2 is a little bit larger. It's a cold traffic audience, which means you can scale out to them, but it's not as big as the problem-aware guys or girls who are basically waiting to have someone help them define their problem, which again is not as big as level 4, who simply have a desire, but haven't even been informed that there's a problem yet or helped crystallize the desire. And then again, level 5 being everyone you can possibly market the solution to if you manage to go them into action. So each one has its own benefits, and I would say the most lucrative level to market to is the closest to where you are currently. So if you're a business that has nailed down the cold traffic solution aware guys, then you would need to move up to level 3 to expand your marketing. That's the most lucrative level. If you are a company that has worked really hard to try and appeal to a level 3 audience, but you've never tapped into your level 1, then you need to tap into your level 1 because that's money sitting on the table. Does that make sense, Yelena? Let me know. There's actually a lot of questions underneath yours, but just let me know if that makes sense. All right. Yes. All right, Giles. Thanks, man. Yeah, I thank you for attending, no matter what. I appreciate that. If you have to hop off, I will answer to the best of my ability. If you have any extra questions, I can answer them in the group. All right. Glad that was helpful, Richard. Yeah, we just want the copy. Yeah, don't do any design unless you are a visual person, Debbie. Don't do any design for the assignment. Just the copy. You could format the copy. I think formatting is a critical part of the copy. So if you format it as in put, center the headline, bold things, change the font, all that stuff, that's fine. Assignment. No, yeah, don't put it in the ClickFunnels or anything like that. Just send me a document. Either send me a Word document or a Google document to lucas@lucasroszewski.com. You all should have that email because that's what you're receiving the autoresponders through. Cool. Glad it was helpful. Okay, great. Let's go back to the questions. Cool. And yeah, okay, cool. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate that. All right, Giles. Let me hop in here. All right, so cool, good. Thank you. Now, Giles, you're still here. I can see you on the call. Did the explanation of the assignment help you answer this question? Struggling to start? Just so I don't have to go over it again. Let me know if that helped you. And if it didn't, I can always help you. Okay, good. So we answered that. We also answered this one, AIDA, because you can use David Frey's template for that. So let's see. If you're doing bullets, then that's what we're talking about here, right? Looking at the sales page, condense all the features and offerings, choose 5, 10 that align with pride, low budget, work my pitch around that. Simple answer is yes. Always work your pitch around the desires of the market. You don't have to throw the kitchen sink at them. If you feel like telling them a certain thing will help them in their decision, then do that. But one of the keys to copy is only adding what you need in order to push the sale forward. And if you feel like adding something is just going to be worthless space, then don't add it. But if you feel like it's going to answer an objection or speak to a hidden fear that they have and they haven't really expressed, then definitely add it. That's the balancing act of copy, and that's why we do this mentorship program, because it's so hard to just go down a template and think, okay, good, I've hit that bullet in time, so now I can move on. That's not quite how copy works. The site says it's the #1 in the industry. It can do overnight, great customer service. So yes, the site does a terrible job of actually writing copy for itself. So don't use the site for the copy, like don't copy it. But you can take the features and the benefits that they talk about and incorporate them into your own sales letter. And the reason being, they are the #1 in their industry. They can do it overnight. They have great customer service. All of those are good points, but they're not things that you want to bring up in the very beginning because you're not talking to that audience yet. You're talking to the person who is interested in solving their problem. Yeah, follow the 12-step. So those are the answers to those questions. All right. So that is it for the thread. Charlotte, welcome. I just saw that you hopped on the call. I answered all your questions in the beginning. So when you listen to the recording, if you have any questions regarding what I mentioned, then please post it in the group and I'll be able to answer it in the Facebook group. Cool. Thank you for getting on. I know you have a 9 to 5, so I appreciate that. All right, thank you, everybody. I know everybody's at a weird schedule, so I don't know what time it is for everyone here, but I appreciate you being on regardless. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left in our timeline for Q&A. Does anybody on the call right now have any additional questions based on the Big Four stuff or anything we talked about on the Q&A so far? Anything about the assignment? let me know, and we can use this last 10 minutes effectively. Oh, Richard, sorry, Richard, completely forgot. All right, Richard, can you link your sales letter into the chat box? Forgot about Richard's business. And this might take longer than 10 minutes, so we'll go over the first part of this, and then we can talk about this either in the group or something like that. All right, so is this your sales letter, or is this just the main URL? What is this? Homepage. Okay, is this what you want me to review real quick? Yeah. Let me do this. All right, Richard, you're unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I got you.
Okay, yeah, I don't really have a sales letter because the only thing I'm trying to do is to get people to set up a strategy call with me where I then go and sell my high-ticket product.
Okay, and the high-ticket product is the dating coaching program.
Yeah, so I've got an 8-week program, not dissimilar to the way you do yours, actually.
Okay. So kind of interactive, community-focused, got content, all that stuff?
Yeah, content once a week, Q&A calls, that sort of thing. So the way I'm trying to get clients at the moment is Facebook ads to blog posts, which then invite a person to make a booking for a call.
Okay.
So you could potentially look at this, or you could look at a blog post.
So, all right, so this is your sales page. They go to your blog, they watch your videos, they potentially schedule a call, right?
That's right, yeah.
So, first things first, that image is terrible. That is a terrible image. Let's break this down via the big four stuff, right? So, first things first, target market. Who are you trying to target?
Trying to target men who they want to meet their Miss Right, but they're sort of jaded by all the pickup stuff.
All right, jaded by pickup, right? Which means they've been in pickup for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients before who haven't been in pickup, but they have an awareness of it, and they just feel like, I've seen all that stuff that tells me to go out and act like the biggest party boy in the room and be in bars till 4 a.m., and it's just not me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they say things like, it's just not me.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just not me. What do they say? How do they define themselves?
They would define themselves as intelligent guys, usually introverts. They see themselves as being good listeners, good guys in general, but sometimes, like a guy who started my program last week, he said he feels that sometimes the guys who are making all the noise are the ones who get noticed, and he sometimes feels like he's getting left on the sidelines.
Unnoticed.
But he doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to turn into like this fake alpha male pickup guy either.
Okay, what's the average age of the person who joins your program?
So say 30 to 35.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
So I had an intuition that you're not going after 20-year-olds anymore.
No, I mean, for one, they don't tend to be able to afford my program anyway, but no, the 20-year-olds tend to want the quick fixes and the magic tricks.
Mm-hmm. So, let's see. Unnoticed. Unnoticed is the key word here. That's one of their primal pains, which means that's going to correspond to a couple different things. It could be envy, because they're envious of the loud guys who get the girls. I know that it's kind of a trope, but a man who considers himself to be a good guy and a good listener and a good person is going to feel envious that he's not getting the same amount of attention from women that a quote-unquote douchebag would get. And I know that's a trope, but it's everywhere. Have you found that that's true in their personal feelings?
Yeah, obviously there's often an envious and a bit of anger towards those guys as well, and sometimes it's resentment and anger towards women for like, how can you go for those idiot jerks and not notice a good guy like me?
So, okay. I think there's a difference there. If there's a resentment towards women, then there is those are different primal desires, and I don't think you want to speak to the people who are resentful towards women.
Okay.
The reason being, if there's a difference between externalizing and internalizing their problem. If they have a problem, which is they're not being noticed by women, then they either externalize the cause of that problem, which is to say women just go for jerks, all women are whatever, or they internalize it and say, what's wrong with me? Why am I different? Why am I not able to do this? Right?
So, yeah.
And so my guess is that more introspective people would be also more interested in your program, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, in general, most people I coach are the more introverted guys. So yeah, most of the guys who come to me tend to be, how can I fix myself rather than someone else's problem.
Okay, so that was just intuitive, but if that's the case, then I think we've hit on something. So you can directly speak against the resentful guys, because that's going to polarize your message towards the people who you want to resonate with. So the reason being, if someone is internally thinking, how can I be better to attract the woman of my dreams, then they're not thinking, why are women dumb and not going with me, which is definitely not like a nice guy thing, right? And then so you can call out people and say, look, if you think it's women's problem that they don't like you, then you are a douchebag, not a nice guy, right? It is not the woman's fault that she doesn't like you. And so if you believe or you have that resentment, then you are the douchebag, not the guy that she's dating. And that's going to really polarize your audience. That's going to make people go, F you, dude, all women are bad. But it's also going to make the internalized guys go, you know what, he's right. I mean, the reason you lead with self-mastery is because you're appealing to that internalizing factor.
That's right, yeah.
So it's something that once you polarize, I think, because we talked about this before you joined the course, and I had a look at some of your materials and some of that. You talked about how you're shifting your brand from where it was to where it is now. I think that the shift needs to happen in a much more polarized way. And the reason that that you might not be getting the results that you want from this is because you're not you might not have that trust factor yet that the actual good guy wants to see, right? For example, I'm reading this, Way of the Gentleman. Okay, that appeals to me, but does a woman in lingerie appeal to me? Maybe, maybe not, right? A true gentleman never has to worry about how to attract or keep a woman. He just needs to understand and apply the values of a gentleman, which are these things here: integrity, presence, and self-mastery. I get that. But, I can come down here and see a trashy photo from Tinder, right? So I think that the brand that you want to come off with and the type of person you want to target is potentially being put off by some of the messaging that you're appealing to. And on top of that, if the target market truly is the person who considers himself to be intelligent, introverted, good listening, good guy, but still unnoticed, and they feel a little bit envious, and they want to internally go in and figure out how they can improve, then that's something solid that we can work with, right? And it allows you to position yourself against some of the stuff out there, like the RSD guys and everything else that's out there right now.
Okay, so do you think this main page is on the right track, or we should switch it all up?
I think it's on the right track, but I think it needs to be cleaned up. And I think that the overall message needs to be mastery of oneself and basically becoming a gentleman and building that level of confidence internally in order to attract the person that you want. And I think you're doing that, but then there's these hidden little things around there, like the Tinder thing, or like some of your old Reddit posts on your page and things like that are throwing people off. I think that's one big component to it. And also, I don't know where you're positioned in terms of market sophistication yet, because I haven't looked at any of your competition. My guess is you're probably one of the only individuals who's made this shift in this dramatic of a way. Most guys are still teaching the previous stuff, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, most guys, I mean, the pickup industry it got big in 2005 when the game book came out, and it's all about pickup lines then. And then it shifted to natural game, but natural game is sort of a scam in my opinion. It's still based around tactics. So I kind of see myself as being at level 3 here, where I'm trying to have a new mechanism.
Right. Well, there's the new mechanism, which would be a new tactic or a new strategy or something like that. But it's still pickup, right? It's still something that a guy wants to go get lots of girls. Okay. Now, your angle, from what you've told me, seems to be you want to help a guy get the girl, not a bunch of girls, right?
Yeah, I want him to get to a point where he's in a position where he has the power to pick and choose the kind of person who's just right for him. Okay.
So I think that with that angle, you're moving into a different market. And so moving into that different market means that you can start at stage 1. Really a benefit. As long as there's a market, which I believe there's a massive market. I'm not in this industry and I don't write for this industry, but just understanding kind of, social dynamics, I think there's a massive hangover from the pickup industry right now because of all the douchiness involved with it. And that hangover is causing these 30 to 35-year-old people to realize that there's a better way to do things. So I think you're well positioned to go into a different market, and I don't think that you should keep fighting with the pickup guys. I think it's a losing battle.
Definitely. When I was reading stuff about that you wrote about market sophistication, it definitely resonated with me when you talked about people being jaded with having seen the same stuff over and over and over again. I mean, I got that with internet marketing a while ago. As old like turnkey system makes you money while you sleep. I used to get reeled in by all that kind of stuff, and then you just get sick of it, don't you? So I think I do feel that way about pickup, certainly.
Yeah, and it happens with every market, but pickup especially because it's kind of like this exhausting mentality in a way. So I think that you would be better served to start looking at the new market, the new target market, right? And what that's going to require is kind of throwing out everything you know about pickup and the industry, and speaking specifically to your current clients, the people who've reached out to you before, and really getting a feel for the why behind their actions. And once you've got that why, then you can start targeting that why in your level 1 stuff, where your social circles, the people around you. And then once you've kind of tapped out your social circles, people around you, you move to level 2, which is the solution aware guys. Those are the ones who are actively looking to find either the woman of their dreams, or the people who are really jaded with the pickup stuff, or something like that, like the people who've fallen out of the market that you came from. And then that should be enough to like busy yourself for about 6 months to a year probably. And because I'm guessing that the market is growing for what you're offering right now, not shrinking.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, thanks.
Okay, cool. So that's the overview. We're at 10:02 right now. We can definitely talk about this as we keep going. And I do want to keep going because I know this is your business. That's one of the main reasons that you joined. But the first things first, I think, is to start researching a different target market.
Okay.
Cool.
So is it just a matter of going to my existing customers and finding out, like, why did you come to me? So get more information that way, or what? Yeah.
And do a little bit of criteria elicitation. I think you'll learn about that in Module 2, criteria elicitation. But basically you just keep asking them why. Like, why does that matter to you? Why is that important to you? And you start getting down deep into the real reasons. And once they've given you those real reasons, you'll start to understand the motivations behind them versus some of the other stuff like the pickup world. So, and once you do that, you'll know your customers, but also keep in mind the fact that they're already customers of yours and probably have gone through some of your content is going to shift their answers from a more natural cold audience, because they've already been exposed to your content, your wording, and everything like that. And they're not going to give you a super accurate definition of why they do stuff, but it's a really good starting point, because then you can go out and do more research on other competitors. Yelena posted a competitor, apparently Introverted Alpha is a competitor.
Yeah.
So I actually don't know anything about them, but the, yeah, so look, attract women naturally. Smart introverted men. You just mentioned that they consider themselves intelligent and introverted. So the market is growing. Does that make sense?
It does. Which means, does that mean I'm level 2 then in that case?
No, not yet. Unless I'm not sure. Yelena, does Introverted Alpha advertise a crap load? I don't know. If they advertise a ton, then you might be at level 2 at this point. But it's also one of the things that I wanted to bring up in this particular iteration of the mentorship is that if you are an expert of some sort, as in your brand and your coaching, your stuff, then it shifts how you're going to communicate. Because there's always going to be a certain level of uniqueness to what you offer that doesn't make everything all cut and dry. Like a product or an information product, something like that, that is simply a product can apply to all these stages, all these levels. But when it incorporates an individual like you who has a proprietary system and you're coaching people, then coaching kind of throws this monkey wrench into everything, because every coach is unique.
Okay.
So we can talk more about that, but we're going over a little bit on time here. But I would say that assume you're in stage 1, market sophistication, for this right now, in a new market, and your number one goal would be to start researching that target market and getting to know them in a very deep way. And also consider some of the branding that you would need to polarize yourself against the people they don't like.
Okay, that makes sense. That's helpful. So I've got a lot of work to do now.
Yep. And feel free to like email me or PM me, any of that kind of stuff. We'll help you out during the mentorship.
All right, brilliant. All right, thanks a lot.
No problem. All right, I'm going to mute you real quick. Okay. So thank you, Yelena, for bringing that up. I appreciate when people bring up other things as we're talking about that. So if you have any like competitors or any insight or anything like that, feel free to post it in the chat whenever we do these. They're actually very helpful. So thank you for that. And so that was it. That was the first Q&A session. Was it valuable for you guys? Did you get something from this? We've got 10 people on right now, so that's pretty awesome. Debbie says very valuable. Richard says awesome. All right, don't scare me like this, guys. I've got the little spinning beach ball of death, so hopefully nothing happened to GoToWebinar. All right, well, hopefully nothing happened to GoToWebinar. I can't see you if you're saying thank you, but I appreciate it. Thank you for your time and attention. This was Q&A number 1. We're going to have another Q&A next week, same time, same place. And so Wednesdays at 9 a.m. MST. And our hot seat, our first hot seat, is going to be October 27th. So that's not next week, that's the week after it. Because the hot seats occur after you've written the assignment, the week after you've finished the assignment. So because we're doing 2-week assignments, the first hot seat will be week 3. So keep that in mind. Ask any questions you need to. Next Q&A is on Wednesday. Ask questions about the content in the group. Thank you for your time and attention, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you very much.